Games Workshop is known as the best miniature producer in the world in terms of sculpture, design and quality. But nowadays the competition is harder than ever. Could it be the start of the end of GW? Is the house of the biggest miniature company on fire? Or are they still on the moon while others are trying to build a rocket ship? In this video, I'm going to try to answer this question by comparing the last GW sprue I have to many competitors' brands' sprues. At the end of the video, I'm going to grade every company based on the 3 most important criteria for good quality miniature, and make the ultimate tier list of miniature producing brands. Let's start with the base value of the video, the one to beat: Games Workshop. Here we have one of the latest sprue made by GW, the Tank Buster for the Orcs for Warhammer 40k. So let's talk about the 3 main criteria I mentioned in the intro. The first criteria is the quality of the mold itself. If you didn't know, a mold for plastic sprue is a big piece of metal in which a milling machine hollows the negative part of the sprue. Once the operation is done, the mold is ready to receive the plastic, and that's how you make a sprue. So this criteria is for the thinness of the sprue. For GW sprue, I gave it a 10 out of 10. It's the one to beat. The sprue is going to be a 10 in every category. So the second criteria is good usage of the limitation. What I mean is the capacity of the sprue maker to position every part of the mini on the sprue with the best optimization possible. If you didn't know, on a sprue you can't have undercuts. It means that on a sprue you must touch every part with a 90 degrees angle. If this criteria is not respected, the piece of plastic will break when unmolded, and you don't want that. This constraint forces the sprue producer to be more creative. For example, in the recent GW sprue of Azerman, for the clock, GW has cut in half the clock to get a better look. Back in the time, this kind of clock, carried by the wind, was always in one part. The clock falls back on itself instead of wrapping around the character like on Azerman. This is a better usage of the limitation to get more dynamism on the finished model, which is better because we get better models. Second thing important here is the space in the sprue itself. If we go back in time with an old GW sprue, you can clearly see a ton of empty space. Empty, empty, empty here too! There is a big difference with today's sprue. Almost every part of the sprue are used. It's also a good use of the limitation. So I give GW a 10 out of 10 for this criteria. And the last criteria is the sculpting quality. It's the most subjective criteria of the list, because the last 2 are objectively checkable, but this one will depend on who looks at the sprue. I personally love the sculpture of GW, and for me, they make a 10 out of 10 minis. I'm clearly not the only one, because almost every time GW reveals a model, everyone is on fire wanting to paint the mini. Except for this one. But as we say it in my country, it's the exception that confirms the rule. So for this criteria, I will just look at the global look of the mini and see if it looks cool, well proportioned, and if it makes me want to paint it. So now that the base value is established, let's start with a well-known game, Star Wars Legion. This game is a particular case. In the starter box there are 2 types of plastic models. One half pre-assembled and others on sprue. Why? I don't know. For the pre-assembled model, the quality is not really good. I can't grade it on the good usage of limitations because I don't have the separate parts. But the sculpture looks good. The pose is dynamic as I expect for Obi-Wan. So it's great. I keep that in mind for the final grade. And now it's time for the sprues. The first criteria, quality of the mold, it's okay. I don't think that it's as precise as GW could be, but you can see some cool details on the clock or on the body. I want to give it a 5 out of 10. Then, the second criteria, good usage of limitation. I'm not really impressed. Every arms are in a single piece, the clock too. Only the body is in half parts and the sprue is really empty. Empty! Empty here too! So I want to give it a 4 out of 10. And finally, the last criteria, sculpting quality. It's a little bit hard to judge that on the licensed product. I mean, they can't reinvent Obi-Wan Kenobi. He had 3 or 4 different outfits, so you can choose one, but that's the only range of possibilities you have. But I can't rate it too high because of the other Star Wars game in this video, which is way better in every criteria. Keep watching. So a 5 out of 10 seems good to me for this game. Here is the recap of the grade for this game. We will see where this game ends up in the tier list at the end of this video. The next game is a game that I love a lot. Let's see if A Song of Ice and Fire can beat GW. This game is not sold on sprues, you get the models already assembled, which could be an important point for people who don't like the assembly step. The first criteria is quality of the mold. I can't see the pieces separately, but as you can see on this night, the mold should be good in terms of quality. But I need to put a warning on that. I am playing A Song of Ice and Fire since 2018, and at this time, the quality was way worse than this. This night kit is the most recent sculpt you can get, and the improvement between 2018 and now is huge. So the quality of the print is really okay. We get some cool details and a good shape in general, but I think that it's below GW. I give it a 6 out of 10, a little bit higher than Star Wars Legion, but still below GW in many areas. The second criteria is hard to grade. The model is already built, but we can see on some miniatures that the idea is to get the lowest number of separate parts to get a low cost of producing. As you can see, all the parts don't fit perfectly everywhere. So I have to grade it a 3 out of 10. You can completely play with these minis and with every other minis in this video, but I can guarantee that you won't choose a Song of Ice and Fire miniature to present at a painting competition due to the quality of the assembly. There is too much work to do and sometimes nothing can be made to fix it. The third and final criteria is the sculpting quality. I love the sculpting quality of this game. It's a completely different style than what we are accustomed to. The quality of the minis is below GW by far, so unfortunately we can't get the maximum of the potential. But I do love what they do, and keep in mind that this game is a regimental game, so I guess that a 6 out of 10 is well deserved. It gets 1 more point than Star Wars Legion, as they are both licensed games. But A Song of Ice and Fire is based on the book, so the sculptors can be more creative with the guidelines. Here is the recap of the grade for this game. We will see where this game ends up in the tier list at the end of this video. The next game is the other Star Wars game of this video, Star Wars Shatterpoint. And let me tell you that if you are disappointed with the quality of Star Wars Legion, here you should be really happy. For the first criteria, I think it's really good. The quality of the pieces is insane. You get some really tiny and cool details. When you see the face of Anakin or the face of Darth Maul, you can clearly see the quality of the mold. For me, it's really close in terms of quality as GW, so this kit gets a solid 9 out of 10. The second criteria is also quite good. This can be seen when you look at the sprue entirely. There is not too much empty space, still more empty space than on a GW sprue, but it's a good point. And when you see the clothes, or arms, or even the head of Darth Maul split in 2 parts to get the best quality possible, you see that this sprue make a good use of the limitations. A solid 9 out of 10 for this game. This allows us to get a cool Obi-Wan model with a good cloak around him. way better than the Star Wars Legion version. For the last criteria, as I said earlier, it's hard for a licensed product based on movie to be creative. But they managed to get really good poses, the smoke out of some jump packs give good dynamics, the minis tell a story when built. They have a presence on the tabletop. That's really cool. A solid 9 out of 10 for this game. What's really interesting is that both Star Wars games, this one and Legion, are made by the same brand. But there is one major difference between each: the scale. So one question remains. Does Atomic Mass Game put the best sculpture they have on Shatterpoint? Or are they just better in larger scale? Or even, is it easier to get better model at a higher scale? I don't have the answer to this question. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Here is the recap of the grade for this game. We will see where this game ends up in the tier list at the end of this video. The next game was a big competitor to GW 10 or 15 years ago in my country, especially at the time of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. But now they completely disappeared from the shelves in stores. Not so good of an intro. This game is Kings of War from Mantic. So for the first criteria, I think that it's okay. The quality of the details is here, but there are some issues that are due to the second criteria. So I guess that a 6 out of 10 is good for this proof. You get really good details, the definition is the same almost everywhere, good. But now it's going to be harsh. So in terms of good usage of the limitations, I think it's pretty bad. Every single minis are split in 4 parts, that's it. The head, 2 arms and the rest of the body. However, every single minis has a weapon option in this kit. But in terms of details, they are great when you look at the sprue from the front. But otherwise, it's bad. You can't have details on the side of the miniatures because of what I explained at the beginning about undercuts. So it's just completely smooth on every side of each minis. I do think that the sprue is looking like that because of money reasons. This game is sold way cheaper than GW, but what you don't pay in cash, you pay in quality. I give it a 1 out of 10 for this criteria. We are back in early 2000s. The last criteria is the sculpting quality. This is also bad because of the size of each minis. And one big issue is the head. To get details on the side of the head, which are in one piece, you need to sacrifice details in the front, so you get weird heads. The built model looks too massive. It looks like one big block of plastic. Once again, I do think that it's what it is because of money reasons. But it's not an excuse, it's just another factor. So once again, the grade will be low. I think 3 out of 10 is good. But keep in mind that this game is a regimental game too, just like A Song of Ice and Fire. Here's the recap of the grade for this game. We will see where this game ends up in the tier list at the end of this video. The next game is, for me, one serious contestant to Game Workshop. This game is Conquest, the last arguments of kings. For the first criteria, the quality of the mold itself, it's really good. In fact, Conquest and the next brand are both made by the same mini factory, which is Archon Studio. They have the same quality as GW, so they get a solid 10 out of 10. First time in the video, incredible. See all the details you can get on these minis, it's really good. The team at Conquest made a really good choice to work with Archon Studio, because you can have the best mini in your catalog if the factory is not able to produce them as you want. The minis are going to be trash. For the second criteria, I'm not sure who needs to be credited for. As we can see in the Gubetan Hobbies video about Archon Studio, I do think that it's Archon Studio which split the original sculpt and divide it on a sprue, but I'm not sure. Anyways, as you can see on the entire sprue, there is almost no empty space. That's a really good job. I think that it's at the level of GW or again, really really close. In fact, the first time I had a Conquest Mini in my hands, I was really surprised about the quality. I thought that GW was the best by far, but there is a studio really close to them in terms of quality. They got a 10 out of 10 for this production. And here is the last criteria, more subjective: the quality of the sculpt. I love a lot of minis from Conquest. I do think that they have really talented people in their team, and that's really cool. There are kits that you would put on a mini painting competition, just like this one. Amazing. As it's the most subjective criteria, I want to give them a solid 9 out of 10. Here's the recap of the grade for this game. We will see where this game ends up in the tier list at the end of this video. And last but not least, for their first ever plastic kit, Squidmars Miniatures. They released 3 infantry minis a few months ago, with their 3 paint sets. And guess with which studio they chose to work with? Yes! Archon Studio! And as we saw just a few seconds ago, it's a really good choice. So as you can see on the footage, the quality is really good, the optimization within the limitations are also perfect. Once again, Archon Studio is a really strong producer to compete with the GW quality. So double 10 out of 10. Now it's time for the sculpting quality. As I want to keep them friendly and don't want them to kick my ass, they get a 20 out of 10. Good job! I'm kidding, but it's a really good sculpt, especially for a first one. Everything is well proportioned, the poses are cool, dynamic or both. There are not too much details, but not too little details either. That's really impressive for a first mini. Honestly, I would have graded a solid 8.5 out of 10 for established company. But for a first sculpture, they can have a solid 9 out of 10. Can't wait to see if they will make more minis in the future. Here's the recap of the grade for this brand. We will see where this brand ends up in the tier list at the end of this video. The tier list is right now, in fact. Now is the moment everyone was waiting for. The tier list. Keep in mind that it's a subjective tier list only based on the sculpting quality, and it doesn't consider the game they could be made up for in the line. Only sculpture and if I want to paint the minis. Let's go! So, as you can see, the tier are S tier, the GW tier for God Workshop, obviously, A tier for really solid miniatures, B tier for cool minis, C tier for not so cool minis, and D tier I will not buy them anymore. So let's put GW where they belong. Obviously in the top God Workshop tier. Then I will place the game in the order we've seen them in the video. So let's start with Star Wars Legion. Considering the fact that half of the range is old minis, not so detailed, and poses are not so dynamic, I want to give them a C tier. Not so cool minis. Then A Song of Ice and Fire, one of my favorite games. I love the sculpt, personally, it's different, that's cool. Half of the range is not so good, but now it's really good. Big improvements since the start. Even better than certain plastic minis on sprue, but there's a lot of work to do on the minis. So I guess B tier should be good. Cool miniatures. Then we have Star Wars Shatterpoint. A really good cast, really good poses and sculpting. Overall, a good range of minis. Still a very young game, so there should be more to come. So, with that in mind, I guess S tier is good. But below GW, we're not crazy. Then, Kings of War. Good cast for details, but only if you look at the front. It's terrible on the side. It's completely smooth on every side. Keep in mind that's a game of regiment and way cheaper than GW. But, as I said, it's not an excuse. I'm sorry, but I won't buy them anymore and I don't want to paint them. So, sadly, is a D tier for Kings of War. Next, Conquest, the Lost Arguments of Kings. Really good cast, thanks to Archon Studio. The sculpture is really good. The range has all minis a little bit under in terms of quality, but completely okay. I think they can go in S tier. Below GW, but before Star Wars Shatterpoint, just because I prefer the sculpt. I prefer fantasy. And to finish, the new range of Squidmars Miniatures. Once again, thanks to Archon Studio, the cast is really good, the sculpture is really good, that makes me want to paint these minis, so they can go in S tier for that. I don't know if I want them after or before Shatterpoint, but in fact the thing is I don't like the aesthetic of Star Wars so much. I know, it's a crime. Shame, but I prefer medieval things. And so for that, I placed Squidmars Miniature just before Shatterpoint. And that's it! Here is my tier list. Which is yours? Let me know in the comments. And if I missed a game that you think has a good sculpting quality, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, bye!